Good morning, and welcome to the Growth and Thriving Morning Mindset. I'm your host, Dr. Jerry Sunshine Novak, the Biker Psychologist. And this morning, what I'd like to do is examine our morning coffee, our coffee ritual in this country, and see if how that works for you. Give you some information about the mechanisms by which caffeine function, and empower you to make some decisions about how much caffeine you consume and when. So, most of us, it's not uncommon for us to wake up in the morning and to grab our cup or two of coffee. Some of us drink that coffee all day long, and some of us add a little bit of coffee to a whole lot of creamer, sugar, and assorted chemical flavorings. So, my goal is not to judge any of that. And you probably know, if you follow my content, that I do not believe that a lot of sugar intake and a lot of chemical intake into your body is going to help you thrive. However, my ultimate goal is to empower you to make decisions for yourselves. So I want to provide the information, and you take it from there. So let's start with the idea that coffee does not give us energy per se. That's not exactly the way it works. All right? What happens is we have a chemical in our system called adenosine. Adenosine is a really interesting chemical because energy, our ability to move or to have energy in any kind of way, comes from a compound called ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. And that's this chemical adenosine mixed with 3 phosphorus chemicals. And that makes the compound ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. And that's the compound, as I said, that produces energy. The more ATP we have, the more force we can produce, the more exercise we can do, the stronger we can be, the more energetic we feel, so on and so forth. Now, adenosine by itself, without those phosphorus chemicals added to them, will build in our system over the course of a day, and it will make us tired. So that's what adenosine does, is it makes us sleepy. It builds over the day, and by the time evening comes, we've accumulated enough adenosine in our system that it makes us drowsy and sleepy, and it builds up the drive, the desire to sleep. Then when we sleep, our brain absorbs up, right? It does what's called reuptake of that adenosine, sort of clearing it from our system. And when we wake up in the morning, sometimes when we wake up, we still have some of that adenosine free floating, and that's why we feel groggy in the morning. But within an hour or so, that adenosine is flushed out of our system, and we feel refreshed, and we have good energy, assuming we slept well, and we start accumulating adenosine again. So why am I telling you this? Well, caffeine, when we consume caffeine, what caffeine does is it blocks those receptors in our brain that uptake the adenosine, that suck it in. So when we drink coffee and we maybe feel more alert or feel more awake, it's not because the coffee is giving us energy. It's because the caffeine is preventing us from reuptaking that adenosine. And so when the caffeine wears off, all that adenosine is still in our system. Right? It just hasn't been able to reuptake in the brain. So what has happened is when the caffeine wears off, is that process by which we build up adenosine and then our brain absorbs it has been interrupted and pushed back sort of to a later start date. So that said, there are 2 major problems, if you will. And by the way, I'm not opposed to coffee drinking. I actually really enjoy coffee. And I used to drink a lot of coffee. I have reduced my coffee consumption. I drink coffee 2 or 3 days a week, and I usually cut my coffee consumption off by 9:30 latest in the morning, and I'll explain why. The first issue with caffeine in our system is if we wake up before that residual adenosine from the night's sleep has cleared, and we drink some coffee right away, what will happen is it will prevent our brain from clearing that adenosine. So in several hours, when that caffeine wears off, that residual adenosine from the morning is still there, on top of whatever other adenosine built up in our system, making us I don't know if it's twice as tired, but way more tired than we would have normally felt under other circumstances. So that's problem one, is drinking coffee too early in the morning before the adenosine has had time to clear will force that adenosine to stay in the system while new adenosine builds up, and then that coffee wears off and we feel exhausted. The other problem is the fact that caffeine has a very long half-life, somewhere between 6 and 10 hours. I know that's a big range, but I have read resources that say both. So let's cut the difference and call it 8 hours, right? 8 hours of a half-life means that once you consume caffeine, 8 hours later, half the amount of caffeine is still in our system, right? So that means that if you have a cup of coffee or tea or soda at lunch, or a Starbucks drink, some caramel something or other with espresso in it or coffee in it at lunchtime, at noon, at 8 p.m., half the amount of caffeine is still in your system, blocking up those adenosine receptors so that your brain is unable to clear it, is unable to process it. And so what happens when we have our caffeine later in the day is when we go to bed, many of those adenosine receptors are still being blocked, not allowing for the normal sleep process to occur. And what it does is, even if you're a person like I am, who can have, a double espresso, technically espresso has less caffeine than coffee, but a double espresso and go right to sleep, the quality of your sleep suffers, because your brain is supposed to go through different patterns of wavelengths throughout the night, right? It's supposed to go from higher activity to lower activity to deep, non-REM deep sleep to REM and back through. And it's supposed to cycle through that pattern several times in the course of the night in order for you to wake up feeling refreshed. And if you go to sleep with a bunch of caffeine still blocking those adenosine receptors, it interrupts those brainwave patterns. They don't process the way they're supposed to, and you wake up feeling exhausted, even though you may have gotten 7 or 8 hours worth of sleep. So those are the two downfalls with caffeine. One is too early in the morning. The other is too late in the day. Too late in the morning means that when the caffeine does wear off, you'll feel extra exhausted because of the extra adenosine you didn't allow your brain to flush out. And if you take it too late in the day, you will interrupt a healthy sleep pattern, which will make you wake up feeling exhausted and needing more coffee. On the other hand, there is great health benefit to coffee. There's some research suggesting that worldwide, people who drink more coffee outlive people who do not. There are cases for tea as well. Tea has caffeine, and so I don't want to neglect there are a lot of tea drinking cultures, and tea also has health benefits. Just in the United States, coffee tends to be our drink of choice. And so coffee is incredibly rich in a variety of antioxidants. And it's believed that that antioxidant content is the mechanism that helps coffee drinkers live longer. I know there are plenty of jokes to be made here, right? It's like coffee improves my tolerance for other human beings too, which allows me to live longer, keeps my blood pressure low. But the idea is that coffee is rich, has health benefits. So here's the basic recommendation, and you can do with it what you choose. The first is that I would not start ingesting coffee or caffeine of any sort until 60 to 90 minutes after you wake up. Wake up, drink some water first, use the bathroom, brush your teeth, shower if you shower in the morning, whatever it takes, and then have your morning coffee. It gives that adenosine that's still in your system after you've woken up time to flush out so that the caffeine is not blocking that residual adenosine. You're sort of starting from scratch. And I would say enjoy your coffee until I cut it off at 9:30 in the morning. Most experts would say that's a little extreme. You could probably cut it off at 10 or 11 in the morning and still be okay with the half-life of the caffeine by the time you go to bed. But try not to drink caffeine past lunchtime, or you will greatly compromise the quality of your sleep. Even if you have no trouble getting to sleep, you'll still compromise the quality of the sleep, thus increasing your perceived need for caffeine in the afternoon. If you do tend to have an afternoon slump where you would normally go for a soda or a coffee to wake you up, try ketones. Ketones have no sugar. They have no caffeine in them. They're your brain's sort of preferred form of energy, and you can buy them on Amazon, get pure ketones, mix it with some water, and you may find that in the afternoon food cravings and hunger go away and you feel more alert and awake for several more hours. But try to avoid caffeine after 11 or 12 in the afternoon latest. Like I said, I cut it off at about 9:30. That said, if you really enjoy your coffee and you want the health benefits of the added antioxidants, and I know this is going to be sacrilege to many people out there, but in the afternoon you can drink decaf. Research demonstrates that decaffeinated coffee, like the decaffeination process, does not impact the antioxidant content. So you can drink decaffeinated coffee, not mess up your sleep potential, and still get the health benefits of the antioxidants while enjoying your coffee. That said, the dangers of sugar and chemical additives are the dangers of sugar and chemical additives, right? The dangers on blood sugar, on glycemic, insulin response, right? If you're somebody who does tend to eat a lot of sugar or high glycemic foods, you don't want to become insulin resistant. That will lead to diabetes. So manage those things on yourself, right? On your own. If you feel the need for the occasional caramel macchiato and you're okay with the occasional sugar rush, and it's in the afternoon, try the decaf version. My preference for most people would be to keep it as low sugar and as low chemical as possible. Perhaps a little bit of stevia and some half and half or heavy cream in your coffee if you can tolerate dairy. I like my coffee black. I guess that's the biker in me, but try it either way. Anyhow, try managing that caffeine content. Tell me if your sleep doesn't improve. Hit me up and let me know. I'm Dr. Jerry Sunshine Novak, the Biker Psychologist. Until next time, biker up, enjoy your coffee, but in the morning, and keep growing till you're thriving. Take care, everybody.